guys, and welcome to the Lazy Girl's Kitchen. My name is Maggie, and on today's episode I'm going to share with you how I make my meatballs. Now for this, we're going to do this in stages because first we're going to start working on the sauce for the meatballs, and then I'm going to take you through and show you how I make the actual meatball. Now we start the meatball out on a pan, but then I actually transfer them into my slow cooker and I let them cook for a few hours so they get nice and soft and really just flavored with everything. So this recipe is going to be perfect for you, especially if you're a busy mom or a student or just someone that likes to have one of those set it and forget it meals. This is perfect. So without further ado, let me take you over the ingredients that you're going to need for the sauce. Okay, so what you're going to need for the sauce is obviously some crushed tomatoes that I have back there, some salt, some pepper, some Italian seasoning, some red onion that I just diced, some basil, some garlic, some olive oil, and just a dash of sugar. Okay, so into my pot, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. There we go. And this will be just enough for you to kind of heat up the onion and the garlic to get that flavor out of them. So I'm going to add in my garlic. My onion. And I'm going to give this a nice stir. I'm going to let this cook for about a minute before I add in my garlic. Okay, so my onions have been cooking for about a minute or so, so I'm going to add in my garlic. And you want to do this in a pot because you're going to be adding in your sauce. So if you do it in a pan, it might overflow. So there we go. We're going to cook this for a few seconds. Give this a nice stir. So let's add in our tomato sauce. Be careful because it might spray all over the place. Now I use the no salt added, like crushed tomatoes, because I like to kind of add the salt myself. But you can use whatever you have on hand. If you do use one that has salt added, just add a little bit less of salt into the mixture. Right, so I'm going to give this a nice stir. I'm going to add some pepper, some salt, my Italian seasoning, and I'm going to have all the measurements written out for you, so don't you worry about that. Give this a stir. I'm gonna give this a nice pinch, not a nice, but a small pinch of salt, pepper, not pepper, I can't even think, of sugar, sorry. Now the sugar, because the tomatoes are very acidic, the sugar really helps to bring out all the flavors of the tomatoes. Okay, I'm gonna give this a nice toss, and then lastly I'm gonna add in my basil leaves. And now I'm gonna let this cook on low heat. So I'm going to bring this up to a simmer, and then I'm going to turn it down to low heat and let this cook for about 15 minutes while I prepare the meatballs. Okay, so for the meatballs, what you're going to need is some breadcrumbs, some ground turkey, an egg, some garlic, some basil that I chopped up, some salt. This here is a mixture of Parmesan and mozzarella, some red onions, some Italian seasoning, and then some pepper. Now what I have here is a plate that I just coated with some breadcrumbs, so that way when I make my meatballs, I'm going to put them on the plate here before I brown them in my skillet. Okay, so into my turkey, I'm going to go ahead and add in my egg because this is kind of like your binder, so it's going to help everything stick together. I'm going to add in, just basically dump everything in, the onions, the garlic, the basil, the Parmesan and mozzarella, the breadcrumbs, And then your seasoning, so your Italian seasoning. And then your salt and pepper. Pinch of salt. Don't do too much salt because your Parmesan's already salty, so you don't want to overdo it. Now for this, you're just going to have to get your hands dirty. So make sure your hands are clean, and you're just going to mix everything together. Just like so. Now you don't want to overwork the meat, but you do want to make sure that it's really nice and incorporated with everything, which is why I like to use a pretty big bowl, because I tend to get very messy. Okay. I can hear my sauce percolating away. It smells so good. Alright, so this looks pretty good for me. Like I said, I don't like to overwork the meat, otherwise your meat gets really hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take them, and I like to make like bigger meatballs. So I'm just going to go ahead and then place it on my, on the plate that I have the, the breadcrumbs. I had a brain fart. Okay, so I'm going to continue to make my meatballs, and then I'll meet you back here to show you what you're going to do next. Okay, so my meatballs are all set. Let me show you what they look like. See, they're nice, and I mean, they're not perfectly round, but really, who's judging? So now what I have here is my skillet, and it's heating up with some olive oil. I don't put too much, just enough to coat the bottom, and just enough so that I can put the meatballs in there to get them kind of started with that nice, beautiful brown color. So this is pretty hot, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put my meatballs down. And then the goal here is to kind of brown them a little bit, so you're gonna have to turn them a few times so that they start cooking, but don't cook all the way through, because really they're only going to be cooking for about 2 to 3 minutes total, I would say. Not too long, just enough to get that beautiful brown color, and when you put them in the crock pot they don't stick to each other and become one large meatball. So, and I don't really care about overcrowding here because I'm not trying to cook them all the way through. I just want them to get nice and golden brown just on the outside, okay? So you're not worried about cooking them through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to babysit these and just rotate them, and then when they're done I'll show you how we're going to assemble everything into our crock pot. Okay, so my meatballs are cooked just around. Let me show you. So you want them to be just kind of like roughly so that they hold their shape, like I said. And I'm just gonna assemble it here. Oh, I had one that fell apart. That's okay. And then I just kind of put them down here. They already smell really good, actually. Because I have a little bit more than I typically make, because I'm actually hosting a dinner party today. So this is going to be for the dinner party. I might have to overlap them, which is fine because I already coated them with when I fried them. So like that oil and that coating that is fried into them now is going to keep them from sticking to each other. So I'm just going to do this. Oh, it smells so good. So now what I'm going to do is the sauce that we made, I'm just going to pour it right into my meatballs. Sorry if it sprays on you. Perfect. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this in my crock pot on high for about 5.5 hours, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so my meatballs have been in the crock pot for about 5 hours and like 25-30 minutes. And I turn the heat down to warm so that they'll be ready for supper for my guests tonight. But I just wanted to eat it for lunch right now. So I want to show you. Look at that. So I just boiled some whole wheat pasta. And I'm just going to give these a try right now. And I topped it with some fresh parsley and a little bit of parm. I'm going to give these a try. Oh, it's so hot. Ooh, hot. I gotta wait a minute. So good. The sauce is perfect. The meatball is perfect. It's perfectly cooked through. It's just like almost like the sauce like soaked into the meatball. It's gorgeous. It looks beautiful. It tastes beautiful. Definitely worth it. And it's really not hard. And all you have to do is put it in your crock pot in the morning, set it, and then come home and your dinner is ready. It's definitely a keeper. All right, so head over to www.thelazygirlskitchen.com to get this written recipe and so many others. Make sure you subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. I'm just gonna keep enjoying this.